I'm guilty. It's another photo booth video on a weekday. And I think I'm just going to give myself permission to do these if I end up doing the video pretty late in the day and I just want to get to sleep. The thing I wanted to talk about today was something that I didn't really know about myself until very recently, which is that I actually have a pretty different disposition when it comes to work and social. And I think maybe people are also the same. But I have noticed that people recently, when I have interacted with some friends while in the workday, that they have really noticed the difference where they sort of say like, "Oh, you're like in work mode," and I didn't really know what that meant because, well, I think I did know what that meant, but what I mean is that I didn't realize that about myself because I don't work in corporate. So I know that some people have to perform corporateness when they have a job, but I work for myself. And I realized that one of the things that I have is I have a level of impatience that I don't think I have when I am in my social life. And not in a way that's sort of harsh. Maybe it is. Ask Sabrina and Melissa probably. But in a way that I just really want to cut to the chase and get to the thing that we're talking about when it comes to work. Whereas in my social life, I'm pretty chill, I think. And the conversation can go wherever it needs to go. But I feel like at work, I'm really trying to be focused on the thing that needs to get done. And even more so as things get more and more busy. And that has led to me being, I think, a little different in terms of personality. And I do have this like very distinct work mode that sort of comes out that's a lot more sharp. And that's cool. That's nice. But I also now am feeling a little bit more self aware of it when I have to interact with people that I know in my social life in a work context, which has happened a couple of times weirdly in the space of a week or space of a month, sorry. And so those things have felt really interesting because I have a couple of things that I can really point to that are very different when it comes to my social life and my work life. The first thing is in meetings. In meetings, I used to be, I think, a little more distracted and a little bit more social, but now I think I'm not. And one of the things that does is I always feel this urge to move faster within a meeting. And that has meant that I have started to really hate the start of meeting chatter, the small talk that happens at the start of a meeting. And the moment that I really noticed this is because sometimes I will join calls 1 minute or 2 minutes late. This is probably 2 years ago or a year ago. I joined calls like 1 or 2 minutes late deliberately because I just didn't want to join when there was not everyone there, because at that point everyone's in a holding pattern and they feel like they need to have this small talk, whereas when I join the call I just really feel like we should just get going as soon as we go. And there's like a social element to it where I know that I can't just jump in and immediately go, right, let's start talking. But that's how I feel in my mind. I just want to jump in the call and get to business. And that's just not the case in a social situation. I'm not trying to have a conversation that's really deep or going in a certain direction. And so I'm just way more chill about it. Even if the conversation is super boring, I'm totally happy to just have a boring conversation for a fairly long time, I think. And that's one way that I think I am different socially at work. The other way I think I'm different at work is I think I give myself more permission to be in a higher conflict mode. I think I have a higher appetite for conflict at work because I think that being high conflict is ultimately better in service of the goal that we are trying to get to. And there is a greater good in that sense that everyone is trying to service rather than just the vibes. And the greater good in a social situation is the vibes. And so I think I am more willing to have conflict in a way that is good for the project. And I feel like I can navigate what the purpose of having a conflict is. And a conflict is not an argument. A conflict is not necessarily a disagreement, but it could be a disagreement. A conflict is basically just any place where there could be some friction. in a conversation. And I think that those things are good because I think that a lot of things can come out of conflict that is productive. Um, One of the ways that I am more willing to have conflict at work is interrupting people, which might seem a little counterintuitive, but I do think that interrupting people to try and refocus the conversation, if it's steered away from it, and also interrupting people in order to pivot the conversation to something that feels more pertinent, is something that is good for the team and the conversation and the objective of the whole business. So the whole business or the whole project or whatever the goal is of that conversation, because sometimes we're still talking about the thing that we want to be talking about, but we're going in a different direction than what could be the most productive. And I think interrupting that and getting us to a more productive angle is something that is more conflict than I would do in a social situation, because I, I don't really think there's many reasons to interrupt someone in a way that isn't like for funniness, for like a quip, for a joke in a social situation. But I think at work, like I think it's okay to productively interrupt people. This could come across badly if you haven't actually witnessed me actually interrupting in more thoughtful and conscious ways at work. Because I'm not saying that I'll just cut people off, but I think it is important to be able to say like, "So sorry, can I just interrupt here?" Or even just like, "I'm going to interrupt here because I think we should be doing this," or whatever. And I think that those things are skills that you can learn, ways to have more conflict at work in ways that are productive. And so those are my thoughts for today. What work mode looks like versus social mode.